This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate platform for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com/ch. That's property with an i.com/ch.
If you go to Italy, they want more and more gluten-free because of overconsumption of gluten. And if you come to Germany, they want more and more meat-free because German diet is really heavy in meat. And then vegan is very popular. Then you come to Switzerland, dairy-free comes into picture also. And then if you go to US, sugar-free is the big trend.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Ansuya.
Welcome, Abouzar. We're really happy to have you here on our podcast today.
Thank you for having me here.
And we're going to dive into your journey as an entrepreneur, which comes, from your family legacy as well, and how it is like to build in Switzerland and internationally. So, Abouzar, you're the co-founder and CEO of FoodYoung, a consumer food innovation company. So I would like to start by getting to know a little bit about your background. You're originally from Iran, and the story of Rahmani entrepreneurship starts not with you, but with your great-great-grandfather. Tell us about the business that he set up in the late 1800s.
Yeah, so starting about my background and heritage in this, as you mentioned, it's going back to late 18th century. Started by actually my both grandfathers and the grandfather from my mom's side. So my mom's dad and my dad's father, both of them, they were entrepreneurs in the food space, and they had their own farms and factories. And so for us, for me and my siblings as kids to grow up, it was everything in the farms, in the factories. It was what we have seen from childhood, to be honest. And so they initially started with farming, and as the whole industrialization started, and back in the time, Iran had strong ties with Germany, so they brought the German technology in processing, and they started exporting, mainly focused on the Iranian dried fruits and nuts to European markets and to the region. And that time later started with USSR also. And and it continued. My uncles took over, and also my father from their father, and then they continued, and the legacy continues still in the family business. Right. But I moved out of the family business sometime back in 2008.
Yes. And I mean, you decided to do your university studies in Belgium, right? Was that common already in your family to go, outside and study? And what motivated you to do that?
Yeah, going out and study, it's very common in Persian culture, and it was quite
also
common.
in Indian culture. Yeah,
it's like you go and study outside, and you come and you help your economy or something, but they stay and they don't go back. So it was common because my uncle left like almost 60 years ago, and he was based in Belgium, and my elder brother was based in Belgium. So it was something very normal that you choose to go study. But what was not very normal, it was like for my elder siblings and uncles, it was always you go and you become a doctor or engineer. Right. And in my case, being the youngest of six, I had the luxury to choose what I want to study. And I didn't study engineering or medicine. I studied business and marketing. Yeah.
But was it also expected that, you would basically help out in the family businesses? So you study business and marketing by default?
It was expected from my side and least expected from my family.
Yeah.
Because my parents and even grandfather, they always wanted their kids to study medicine. So that's why my elder brothers, they studied medicine and engineering.
Yeah.
And
It sounds like my life, honestly. It's very similar to Indian culture. I feel.
yeah, it's very common.
Yeah.
And so when it came to me, as they didn't have any expectation, and I chose by my interest to study business and marketing.
Got it. And then after your studies, you decided to join your brother in the family business in Belgium. So what was that like, and what was your contribution to it?
As I was studying in Belgium, also I was working in the family business. Also, it was always parallel for us, studying and working. It was something very normal, and I was working in our family company in Belgium also. And there, my contribution in initial stage in Belgium, it was into family business, more of a support in operations, because my ideas, it was not very welcome in that situation because I was young and unexperienced. And what our family was focusing always from my grandfather time and grandfather, it was on B2B. So mainly producing ingredients for the large industries. And my education, it was more on B2C. And that was something new and something that they appreciated, but I was very young to trust and include me in that journey. But at the later stage, so my father gave me a chance to start a brand, a pilot project, and it became successful, and then it got appreciated. And there I learned that you have to lead by example. So that's why I love pilot projects. So you make it in a smaller scale, you prove it, and especially when you're shaking the status quo.
That's also what we'll dive into with FoodYoung, because you support so many different projects through that company. But is that what you ended up doing basically in 2008? Because that's when you moved to Dubai and built Mani, right? Which was focused on consumer foods, and that you exited in 2012. So was that the one that your father essentially supported you with?
No, my father actually supported me before that.
Okay.
Even the time that I was a student, and helped me to do this pilot project within the family business.
Got it. Okay.
So what I did the pilot project of Mani between 2004 and 2008 within the family business.
Understood.
And that project, it became very successful and ended up completely changing our family business structure from B2B to B2C. And then I helped and developed multiple other brands in beverages and in different type of snacks and condiments for the family business. And that was a sort of a turnaround for our family business. And in the year 2008, as I stepped out of family business, then I started to do those on my own.
Understood. And did you still at that point also have contributions to your existing family business, or take support from them, like ideas or brainstorming, like what to do now with Mani?
Not with the family business anymore, because it was a little bit of a difficult exit, because you can imagine a family of 6 siblings, everybody involved in the family business. And I was the only one that I break out of that system. And it was a bit difficult to even my father and siblings to digest that. And the journey after 2008, I went quite alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, 2012 is when you exited Mani and you founded FoodYoung, right? With your wife, Yulia, and your niece, Funda. How did you get to the point of firstly exiting Mani and then coming to the idea of building FoodYoung? What drew you to this new project?
First, Mani, as I started without any support. So in 2008, so suddenly I came out of a family business with all the resources and all the supports. And I started as a sort of a lonely entrepreneur and without much resources. So I fundraised for this business, initially in form of debt, and then established a business, set up a factory in Dubai back in the time in 2008 in Dubai Investment Park. And then we moved very, very fast together with my niece Fonda. And we got some important accounts on board with our brand Mani, including Emirates Airline, Etihad, Carrefour supermarkets and hypermarkets in the region. And we very fast, within 2 years, we expanded to most of the like catering accounts, including Emirates Catering, Etihad, Oman Air, and Qatar Airways, and also different countries in the region, in GCC region, including Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar, Oman, Bahrain, and then we expanded to Egypt and Levant countries. That expansion, it was very fast, and within 2 years. And then after that, we established that the company gets a certain value, and we wanted to replace those debts with equity. It was the right time and the right valuation, and we got the private equity's interest from the region. Back in the time, it was Abraj Capital. They invested in the company, and so we were expecting to exit the brand within 3 to 5 years, like typical any VC or private equity will invest. And in 2012, we had an interest from one of the largest players in the region, from Kuwait, and they acquired the Mani business, the regional part of the business, and they merged it together with their own existing brand, RFI. And so for me, it was starting a new chapter in my life. Get back to Europe and start something innovative and something that can add significant value, I would say, to the food industry.
So what was the sort of motivation or key idea behind FoodYoung?
The key idea from behind FoodYoung, it was in, I would say, 2 areas initially. The first area, it was supporting entrepreneurship. As an entrepreneur, like every entrepreneur, I have been through the pains of entrepreneurship, which sometimes I find it a little bit like sort of a joke, to be honest. In 21st century, I always say that if your car is broken, you know where to take it. If your leg is broken, you know where to take it. Even as small as your phone is broken, you know where to take it. But if your company is broken, you don't know where you take it. And if you want to build anything, we have resources today. If you want to build a company, you don't have resources. We are building the companies in the way that we are building cars in early 1900s. In garage and with so we don't have any platforms that can support building companies, startups and SMEs that are the backbones of the economies globally. And that's where one motivation I had, it was how can we build a basically company making a factory. And that time in 2012, it was the incubators, they were popular, and accelerators and the VC funds, but it was not answering to this demand. So one motivation was on the entrepreneurship side, and the other motivation I had, it was on the side of the health. So food and impact on the health, because I have a major transformation in my lifestyle and health and like body, and that goes back to 2008. 2008, I was overweight. I had 35 kilo more than now, and I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes, as both my parents they suffer from, and also a high level of cholesterol. And that was a awakening moment for me. And I remember, like, when the doctor gave me the results, and then I looked and I said, am I going to end up with the sufferings that my parents they have? Is it genetics? Doctor said that no, it's lifestyle. And for me, it was the first awakening moment. Lifestyle. What's lifestyle? And I never forget, this doctor said that it was in Clinique Louise in Brussels. that there's a session on nutrition, and it's tomorrow. You can attend and you can learn a little bit. And with that session, everything started, and I deep dived into nutrition.
That's a
topic.
good doctor,
Yeah.
who's like guiding you in the right direction instead of handing you a prescription.
Because I was not his patient. So he was the doctor of my parents.
I see.
And that's why, out of curiosity, that I asked him when I was there taking my parents for the checkup. And he guided me. And there the whole element of the nutrition and food came. And that's why initially I started FoodYoung with tackling these two challenges that society is facing. One is the entrepreneurship, and one other, it was like general health, and especially focused on non-communicable diseases.
And how did you also then decide to do it together with your wife and your niece? Having also left the family business previously, now you decided to do it with other family members. What was that experience like, and what was the sort of reasonings also behind it?
With the niece is different, because with Fonda we build money business, and we always continued, and we complement each other. She's very strong in operations, and that's why she always plays a little bit back of this, or how we can call it, and the back, more as a support on the operation side of the thing. Fonda was there, has always been there. And in the case of Julia, we met Julia in 2015 in an impact investing event in London.
Okay.
And that's where, so that was the time that I was digging a little bit more into the topic of sustainability. And Julia comes from a family that they are very active in renewable energy.
Okay.
And sustainability is an angle that that's their
Obviously
focus.
part of it. Yeah.
And so the element of sustainability came with Julia to this business. And then the focus expanded from health, entrepreneurship, and adding sustainability on the top. And I remember I was not that much conscious about sustainability. I've always been conscious about pollution. Pollution is a topic that in my family, it has always been a topic that keep the things clean.
Yeah.
That was always there. But looking at the whole ecosystem of nature, and even that, and the Persian culture, we have it, that you have to take care of the nature, because that's where you are living in, and keeping the whole ecosystem functioning. But getting into it in a deeper level and scientific, that came from Julia's side, and now we are looking at that side quite seriously.
That's great. So tell us a bit more about the problem that FoodYoung solves. Like, how does FoodYoung innovate in nutrition, sustainability, and taste, of course?
At FoodYoung, we focus at, again, looking at these pain points, seeing the problems that they come from non-communicable diseases. That's the number one part. So the way that we look at that topic, we look at what creates these problems in the society, which goes mainly to the ingredients and the processes that we have.
Yes.
And we have developed a clear charter, that is a nutrition charter, together with the specialists and doctors in the field, that what are the ingredients that we need to avoid completely, what are the processes that we need to avoid, what are the ingredients that we can tolerate, what are the ones that are encouraged, and using those ingredients and processes to make sure that we can create something healthy, sustainable, and good for the body. We have food scientists in the company that they focus in that area, and we make sure with our charters that we don't go off. For example, last week we had a trial, and in the trial agave syrup was used. It's not a non-refined sugar, it's not that healthy, so immediately it was no. This is outside the charter, we don't use agave here. Or when it comes to any E numbers, any natural flavors, again, natural flavors is a big topic that there's nothing natural about it.
Yeah.
So it is a way that we call lab-made flavors, and we I don't know, somehow we ended up there to call it natural
Yeah.
flavors. And so those are the things that we avoid. And then when it comes to the taste side, taste is a very, very important element to the food. It has been and it will be. In the middle, so we can rationalize the things and we can say that have this, even doesn't taste good. You will have it like medicine, but that will not come as a regular food habit.
Yeah.
So for that one, we are working with different chefs, culinary chefs, pastry chefs, bakery chefs. We have in our structure as permanent staff, passionate about what they do. And I have to say, being in the Italian part of Switzerland,
Yeah.
that helps also.
Yes.
And because of the culinary heritage of Italian cuisine and Mediterranean cuisine, that really helps to create food that are really tasty, at the same time healthy. And then we have clear charters around the sustainable food and sustainable practices. And those are other elements that we bring it into anything that we do. For example, we focus mainly on organic ingredients, traceable, single origin, fairly sourced, beyond fair trade even, and also using processes that they damage the natural integrity of the products at least, and to make end up making something that is tasty, sustainable, and healthy, but at the same time using the best of the food technology. So best practices that has been created in the food technology that respect the food, respect the environment, and creates more healthy and sustainable, at the same time tasty. Again,
Yeah,
taste
that sounds great. Yeah, that's exactly what we need. And do you also extend that as well to the packaging as well of the products?
Of course. It's like when we see products, so we see the ingredients, we see the packaging, we see the means that is getting into the consumer's hand, even secondary packaging and transport packaging and transportation. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts about the food industry and culture these days? Do you think it's shifting nowadays?
Yes, of course. I would say food industry, it has been one of the most stagnated industries. It needs change, and the changes are coming and it's happening. But at the same time, there are too much of noises, too much of distractions, because if we see healthy food, there are too much of noises, lobbying, distractions, what's healthy, and sometimes making micro trends bold, sometimes creating fake trends. But definitely there are changes, which is normal. Every change when it comes, so always there are these noises around, and at the end it takes some time to get the things right. I see from the health side of the food, there are lots of things coming. Sustainability of the food industry, so we see more and more awareness and more solutions coming out into the market. And using technology in the food industry also is another element that is happening. But still is slow. Is much slower than what this industry deserves and needs. And sometimes solutions are mediocre comparing the scale of the problems, but definitely is happening, and that's where we want to be a part of this transformation of the food industry.
And I mean, at your company, you've got this full stack approach, as I like to call it, involving, venture studio and an innovation lab. So how do you put these things together? How do you go from you have an idea for a food product to a finished product in your portfolio, and how long does this process take?
So the way that our facility is structured, I always say it's a combination of a formulation lab, pilot plant, and scale co-manufacturing facility, but all under one roof. So what that means, it means that we do end-to-end, all the way from development to market-ready products. And in the development stage, for example, we are working with a food scientist. It can start from different points. It can start from a point that there's a food scientist that has developed this special algae product from spirulina. It is sort of a protein coming from algae, and then wants to create a consumer product with that. It can start from there that we are starting from an ingredient. It can start from there that there's a pain point on a certain product, for example, removing palm oil from breakfast spreads. Like, okay, how do we remove that to keep the cost under control, to keep the taste on as par, and the smoothness and everything? So it can start from a problem of a product, or it can start from an ingredient, or it can start from a need for a solution. And from there, what we do, we prototype. We start our, even in some cases, we can start from ideation process and then prototype it, then bring it out, taste it with panels and different stakeholders, even sometimes in businesses, and then take it to pilot plant, do small scale production, do market testing, test and learn. And then based on the learning we have, and then we move it to scale production.
So also in terms of like market testing, because I'm assuming that for different markets, it's like different products would work better depending on the culture that there is, in of that place. And, at the moment you've got offices primarily in Switzerland and in the US. So how does the testing and release of the products differ for these markets?
We look at different regions. They have different sensitivities. So even within Europe, within US, different states in US and different countries in Europe, they have different sensitivities for, I would say even in the trends also. If you go to Italian part, they are more gluten sensitive. So they want more and more gluten.
Even though they eat a lot of gluten, right?
That's the reason.
Okay.
It's always that the pushbacks comes from the culture.
Where it's like too much excessive consumption of something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if you go see excessive consumptions and the trends, this is something that I personally noticed, that if you go to Italy, they want more and more gluten-free because of overconsumption of gluten. And if you come to Germany, they want more and more meat-free because German diet is really heavy in meat. And then vegan is very popular. Then you come to Switzerland, dairy-free comes into picture also. And then if you go to US, sugar-free is the big trend. So no refined sugars. True. And then if you come to the topic of fair trade, I would say the slavery topic gets bold in the countries that they have passed a bit of history of slavery and all this. So they are more and more sensitive about the topic. Right. So it's always the trends. I noticed that they link to what has been the past experience of the countries with the products. And that's why if we look at the sensitivities in terms of, I would say, the brand values and the changes that is happening, I would say US is mainly on refined sugars, inflammatory oils, which is not a big topic in Europe yet. And if I look at Europe, is more, if I put the whole Europe together, is more on the sustainability than, and certain specialty diets like vegan and gluten.
It's more connected to environment and those topics than health.
As a more social environment and health, they only focus certain countries on certain dietary requirements like gluten, which is linked to celiac disease, and but sugar or inflammatory oil is not a, I would say, it's not a big topic in Europe as big as it is in US. But there's one topic which is, again, there's countries and then there's generations. So there are generations and countries that, for example, with younger generations, because of the connectivity through social media, the trends, they are coming a little bit more uniform. And now one of the big trends is gut health.
Yeah, that's true.
That is,
I see that on my social media a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm also interested in these topics, but yeah. I agree.
Yeah, because that's a topic that it's highly linked to the level of the sugar that we have in our food, and also the level of the processed food that we have, and that's leading to the gut health problems. And
definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, tell us also a bit more about how you went about to expand to the US, and like how did you know it was the right time to do so, or did you already start first in the US market?
Yeah, US goes back to 2012 when I exited the money business in Middle East. Like every entrepreneur, that you cash out and you have suddenly cash in the bank account, and you don't have all the headaches of the running the company and stuff and everything. So it gives you some time. It gave me some time in 2012 to travel the world, and with always this in my mind: how can I help this pains that we have in entrepreneurship to reduce, and also the health topic, especially with non-communicable diseases. And I did the journey to Asia, to Japan, mainly focused on Japan and Singapore, and then went to US, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, and different countries in Europe and Middle East. So to see what I learned, and the biggest learning I had, this was from US, I have to say, because the food trends, they were more bold in US, especially in 2012 when I noticed these changes. And but focusing on US, I have to say venture capital is much stronger. The culture is there in US and stronger than Europe or any other country in the world. And marketing, I would say that's where it started the things, at least for the current century. And but when it came to the creating food and a strong food culture, I found that Europe is very strong. There I got the idea to set up a structure. At that time, I have to say 2012, I didn't know that one will be called Full Stack Innovation Lab, one will be called Venture Studio. But I got the idea, like venture capital, marketing, and market and openness to try and experiment is US. But the food know-how and food science and cultural food, it's in Europe. And that's why set up the structure in Europe, in Switzerland, the Full Stack Innovation Lab, and Venture Studio also initially here. And after that, putting everything in place, it was planned to happen all structure by 2019. And 2019 end, when we were ready, COVID came, it slowed down everything, and we started really focusing on US market from 2022 after COVID.
Got it. And so who have been your customers? Like if you compare the Innovation Lab and the Venture Studio, so what kind of companies do you work with?
Innovation Lab, we focus, or I would say Venture Studio also, but mainly Innovation Lab, the customers that we have, I always categorize in 3 tiers. One is the large corporates, large food companies, can be food conglomerates or large food retailers, that they are looking for innovation. And they don't have the management capacity within the company to try the product and test it and scale produce it or anything. So that's why they approach us, or we approach them, and we work together and we build solutions for them. Second tier is, I call them like established startups. It means typical startups that they have gone through their series A, B, C round, and now they are still entrepreneur run, but they're quite established, and they are looking for bringing food solutions that are not mainstream, but they are in line that mainstream because they are quite sizable businesses. And then we have very small startups that they are having more revolutionary ideas, and they are bringing something completely new. They're taking more risk, and we work together with them. Venture Studio comes into the picture here, that normally with the large corporates and established startups, you cannot take equity because it's not in the control of entrepreneur anymore, or they are publicly listed companies. And we work purely on our services. But when it comes to the startups, that small startups that are starting, through our Venture Studio, we support to co-create that venture or come in the co-creation process of that venture, and take equity against our services and build the venture together.
And do you also take any kind of cut from their sales as well? And are you, allowed to sell through Domani Food?
So just to clarify on Domani Food. So Domani Food is the innovation part of FoodYoung, and to avoid confusion also now we are changing the name to FoodYoung Labs.
Got it.
So that's normally from the startups or anything, I personally am not big favor of taking cuts and commissions. So we work together with as a production company that we produce, and we take a healthy margin for us, and then we pass it to the company. So we don't like typically we prefer to take equity and help the business to grow than taking money from there. Yeah.
Understood. So now, in terms of the, entrepreneurship culture in Switzerland, because you talked a bit US is more advanced and ahead. I mean, that applies to mostly all kinds of businesses that globally that we know of. But how would you compare that in your experience, the two countries, and what challenges did you face specifically here also in Switzerland, and how did you navigate that?
Definitely there is a difference between European and American way of looking at the business. And European mindset is more pessimist and reserved, and American mindset is more optimist. And on that line, more American mindset is like, let's take the risk and see what happens, and is more definite. And European mindset is more indefinite, and let's be reactive. And this is not what I say. This is what Peter Thiel writes in his book, 0 to 1.
Right.
So that's, I think I'm not that experienced to have such comments now. But this is definitely something that I can agree with him in my experience that I had in the space of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, number one, you have to be optimist. There are lots of times that I work with partners and employees that they come and say it's not possible. And my point is here, yes, it's not possible, but our role is here to make impossible possible, not the possible impossible. So that mindset of is impossible, yes, I know it's impossible, but that's why we have to make it possible. And that's that's the thing, that that mindset sometimes is difficult. That mindset in US they will say is courageous. In Europe they will say he's crazy, sometimes lunatic, and you will get that labels a lot.
Right.
And that's what makes a big difference in mindset when it comes to entrepreneurship, and also relationship with the money and capital.
Yeah, I mean, going on that, because you had made a statement previously saying that the financial system here is designed to preserve money rather than creating money. So, if you can shed some light on what you mean by that precisely and how it works in your experience here.
It's, again, when it goes to the topic of venture capital, because I had venture capital investors in my company with more of typical American venture capital mindset and approach. It was the point that investors, they came on board with me on many business that we had a successful exit, and they took the risk with me. It was certain untapped categories that we didn't know what will be the result. And we succeeded, and it was early on in the business, and we didn't have strong track records. Then coming, that's venture capital. That's focus on, let's take the risk and let's create a value, and let's make impossible possible. But what I experienced, maybe is only my experience in this field, but I experienced that the venture capitals that I encountered in Europe, more they say we are venture capital, and then they want have 3 years to 5 years positive EBITDA, everything running smooth and fine. that's not venture capital, that's private equity. And that is more of a way that you want to put your money in somewhere very safe with the small returns, and basically secure your money and hedge your money against inflation. Venture capital doesn't work with 5-10%. In venture capital, we are talking about multiple X, and multiple X comes with lots of risk.
Yeah, bigger risks in the beginning, taking bolder steps.
10-20%, or sometimes we talk about even 1 or 2%. That's saving. That's not, from my perspective, that's saving. That's not investment.
And you also mentioned, that the food space in Switzerland is still young, right? And also here, I mean, there are only 2 major retailers as such. So it is a hard to fight, for a chance. Like, how did you overcome that? Like, how do you navigate selling your products here then with the retailers?
To be honest, I wouldn't see that as a fight, because in the business, I see we have an approach that we don't say that we want to just change the food industry. This sort of very bold, how can I say, conflicting statements that most entrepreneurs, they give, oh, this is evil, we are nice. They said, no, it's not that way. Because I come from a family business is large enough to be in the level of large corporates. I know the culture there. I know the culture of entrepreneurship. I don't see that we are against each other. So that's why even with the large retailers, even if they control the market and all this, I see more collaborative approach. So we can collaborate, we can co-create. The small one is nimble, large one has more resources. And working together, I see that's a way forward. So I don't see that as a major challenge if we have a little bit of understanding of the other parties also. For example, working with large retailers, looking at their number of point of sales. Like you are talking with a retailer with a couple of thousands of point of sales. It means covering a mass market. They cannot change everything in one day, because that market will not change in one day. So I cannot say that my product is very sustainable, my product is very healthy, and even my product is priced reasonably and it tastes good. And then you have to take it and put it everywhere and change it. No, even all of these, consumers will take their time to change. We have to respect that. It's similar thing with the electric cars. I drive electric car. We have only electric cars. And every time I drive, I say, but why? But why we don't shift from petrol car to electric car?
Yeah.
It's faster. It's more, even somebody that loves performance cars, they are more performance than petrol engine cars. They are more quiet. They are more sustainable. They cost much, much less. They don't have repair maintenance cost as the petrol engine cars they have. But if you look at the logic of it, logically, Tesla or any of the electric, even high-end ones like from Porsche and others, they are 10x better. But if you look at emotionally, consumers, they will not change overnight.
Yeah.
Some they say we love the smell of petrol.
So how would you compare then the, let's say, consumer food habits here versus in the US markets?
Again, Anglo-Saxons, they have more tendency to change their food habit because they don't have that much of varieties and they don't have that much attachment to their food. As we move more traditional in the markets, that there's more attachment, there is more resistance to change.
Yeah.
If we are looking at the southern Mediterranean countries, you will see that attachment to the food that they have, which is not bad, to be honest. Mediterranean food and Mediterranean diet is one of the best and healthiest. Or if we go to more Asian or Middle Eastern ethnic foods, it will be much more resistance to change.
That's true. It's quite tied into what they're used to generationally eating certain way.
Exactly.
So if I want to touch upon a bit more also financial support or financials, if you've taken any external funds at FoodYoung, and what has your approach been for that so far?
At FoodYoung, when it comes to FoodYoung innovation labs, our facilities, and also venture studio, so we rely primarily on our own funds. So it's fully owned by us, the founders. And where we take investment or we co-invest together with investors is in portfolios that we develop.
Okay.
And because portfolio approach to FoodYoung Studio is purely collaborative. And so I just give you an example. One of the latest brands that we have and we are launching, we started with US and now in Switzerland, is Zaz, is a vegan chocolate, low GI sugar, no refined sugars, and super smooth and tasty. A range of different applications in form of bars and bites. They call it like bars and bags. And that specific venture, we are co-creating this together with CAA, which is the creative agency, talent agency in US, based in Los Angeles. And then we bring on board an operating co-founder, we bring on board a co-investor, and also a celebrity. And then we share the equity. So we are the product partner, then there's a partner for marketing, there's a partner for investment. And that's typically how we work. So we bring co-investors together with us into the ventures that we do, or similarly with other even historic brands that we are reviving. Like
and how do you find these co-investors?
Good question. No, co-investors normally, it comes from our networks. Okay. So that's something that, to be honest, it comes more organically. So you have the discussions, and CAA, they have their own network, or when it comes to our other partners in different areas. So we don't go out loud to do fundraising. So we prefer to have investors that they are aligned with us, and we share the same values and same vision to the brands, and then they come on board.
And have you found that the co-investors from the US are also the ones who are helping as well more for Swiss market-based products? Or how is it the difference in venture investing between the two markets?
Actually, American investors, they like to invest in consumer food that they are in the US market.
Okay.
So that is, they wouldn't, if it depends on the size of the deal,
Right.
but typically they would prefer to invest in their domestic market, at least angel investors, private investors, and family offices. And but the opposite is interesting. European investors, they have more tendency to invest in American startups
because it's bigger markets, more return in by default. Then
exactly, the market is bigger, the openness is there, and sometimes for a simple reason that it's more exotic. Yeah.
Another question I wanted to ask was more, how it works to balance then your private and professional life. Like, are you bringing, the shop home since you're working with your wife, and how do you balance those two aspects?
I have to say putting like family life and business life a little bit separate is a key. So this is something that I have learned from my parents, because my family business has been always part of the family life. And that's why you have to have really clear boundaries. And that's sort of a switch that even working with my niece and my wife, we have this clear lines that now is business or now is personal. That's why For somebody looking from outside, it can look a little bit psychopathic also, that they see that suddenly they switch. Suddenly the things that were very casual and it turns very serious.
Yeah.
And that's why we have that clear lines and clear shifts, that business needs certain seriousness and personal life needs certain flexibility. And you don't have to mix them together.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a skill.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I'm sure you'll have thoughts about, ideas for the business that you want to discuss, and you're like, okay, this is probably not the place and time to do so, even though you can, because your family members are there, all the time, pretty much.
No, but that's the whole point. For example, if we have, even in a family setting, we have a business topic to talk.
Yeah.
And somehow for years of doing this, we are trained like, okay, 10 minutes, we focus business, and that goes very serious. And for somebody looking from outside, that's why I would say that they will look and say that, wow, this was a bit like bipolar. Like suddenly you change to the seriousness and then you go back to normal.
Right.
But we try to not mix these two together.
Yeah. I mean, once you know how to do that, then it becomes probably second nature also.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And I also want to highlight one of the, recent successes that you had. Well, in 2019, you acquired Cima Norma, if I'm pronouncing it correctly,
Correct, yes.
which is a Swiss heritage brand. So if you can tell us a bit, like, what did they specialize in, and, why did you decide to acquire?
Yeah, so being in Switzerland in the food industry, I would say, as you say, Swiss food, first thing comes to your mind is chocolate.
Yeah.
And we always wanted to do something in the Swiss chocolate space and bringing certain level of innovation in terms of sustainability and health and taste side of the things. And we were working on a project, a brand named Kaku, to launch it in the chocolate space, chocolate high in polyphenols. Basically, the message is Kaku makes me smile, sort of a chocolate that is, of course, chocolate is naturally high in polyphenol, but it's more enhanced. And then we came across this brand, Cima Norma. Is a brand goes back to 1903, founded by Cima brothers in southern Switzerland, and in a beautiful valley called the Valle Blenio. Is in the southern part of the Alps, in the northern valleys of Ticino. And at first I came across the building. It has a beautiful, majestic building standing there. And I asked one of my friends, what is this? He said, there's a chocolate factory. I said, okay, what's going on there? He says, it's empty. And what about the brand? I quickly Googled, I deep dived in about the brand history and heritage. And I was like really amazed. A brand with 120 years back in the time, it was a bit less, of heritage, and like beautiful packaging, beautiful range of products. And I reached out and I met the owners, and then they brought the old packaging and recipes and everything. I was really amazed. And dormant since 1968, a brand that it has quite interesting history. It had lots of ups and downs, but never died. You cannot imagine, like this factory, it was once washed by the water with the flood that came from the hills, once got fire and completely burned down. And then it got lots of adversities that they put in Latin on the buildings, like adversa corona.
Yeah.
And like adversity brings the prosperity. And even 1968, it was not a bankruptcy. They didn't have any issues. The owners, they decided to close down the factory, kept the company, all the heritage materials, building, everything. As time stopped in 1968, we acquired the brand, and keeping the beauty and luxury and legacy of the brand from the past, and bringing with the innovation and making it current. Because if you look at the chocolate industry, after I would say 40s and 50s drifted a little bit. Before that, the chocolate industry, it was, I would say, they were respecting the integrity of the cacao fruit. Cacao fruit is not a cheap fruit.
Yeah.
And even today, it's quite interesting. The cacao prices are very high, and it was treated as more of a luxury product, and with the, I would say, attention that it deserves. And then now we see that this brand didn't do this drift, as it was out of the market after 60s, and now we want to bring it back. And all the range that we do is organic, fairly sourced, single origin, traceable, and very, very high quality cacao beans that are properly dried, properly fermented, and roasted as whole bean, not broken, and conched properly. That gives a delicious chocolate that is sourced the way that it has to be, and produce it the way that it has to be.
That sounds amazing. I want to now have this chocolate as soon as possible. And how has the response been? Like since now, have you launched it again? And like, do you have like old sort of customers who want to come and
We launched the heritage collection in Switzerland, just to remind a little bit about the history of Chimanorma, nothing big. And then later we launched the food service range in Los Angeles, in California, collaborating with the chain of coffee shops that they focus on organic and good for you coffees and pastries, called Earth Cafe. And it has been a big success. We developed different sort of drinks and chocolate spreads and chocolate chips for food services, without refined sugar, without dairy. And Earth Cafe, they reached to the point that they replace their Nutella spreads with Chimanorma spreads.
Wow.
It has been a success. Now we are expanding in California, and then focusing on East Coast in US, and also plan to launch and expand it into Swiss market as well.
Okay. That's interesting that it was easier, like, going through the theme of today's conversation, to do that more successfully in the US first, and then bring it into the Swiss markets.
Yeah, it's as I mentioned previously, it's a bit of a cultural openness to innovation and taking risk. It's like for a coffee shop chain shifting from one spread to the others, taking decision doesn't happen that easy. In US they give you more chance. That's always there.
So Abouzar, you've got like more than 140 years of business legacy behind you. What lies ahead? Like, what's next?
I would say when you have generations of business legacy behind you, it pushes you somehow to look back. And then when you look back, the time horizon expands. So if I have to look back for 140 years, and especially being Persian origin, you have to always look back some couple of thousand years back. And then you say, okay, like looking from that perspective, and you see what people they did in decades and centuries ago, and you feel it today. Say, what can we do today? The next generation, that they can feel it in their time, in a century, or at least in a decade. Because now our focus on business became very much momentary, like now, today, tomorrow, in 1 year. But I would see the way that I see that, I would say in my lifetime, to see some changes that we brought to food industry, positive changes in terms of consumer health and environmental health. And also pleasure that people they had consuming these products, entrepreneurs that they could build their brand around it, corporates that they can bring more positive changes to the consumers, and something that we can take some steps, and the generations after us, they can take the steps and they can take it forward. That's how I personally see
That's
take the
great.
business forward.
And what would you see for yourself? Like, what role do you foresee you playing in the future with your business?
I spend most of my time in the labs. I enjoy the product developments and formulations and finding the best of technologies and connecting, basically putting this food science, food tech, and culinary experts together. That's on the lab. So that's my joy, to be honest, in the business. And the other side, connecting again different co-creation partners around the ventures and making multiple ecosystems that functions together.
Excellent. Now that brings us to our next segment, where we would like to know a bit about, recommendations from you for our listeners in terms of any resources or gadgets, podcasts, books, or anything that you think you find helpful personally or professionally that you would like to share.
Yeah, I'm not a big gadget person. That's something, everyone knows around me.
Yeah.
So I use, to be honest, for me, the best gadget that we have now is the iPhone and Apple computers. I use it like everybody else. And one gadget that I find is quite interesting is this notepad from Remarkable that you can take a note, you can delete it easily, it saves automatically, you have it on your phone. That one is my favorite gadget, I have to say. It replaces the paper and it makes it very easy to find and have it on your hand. In terms of books, I mentioned about the 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel is a book that I think every entrepreneur has to read. And also overall the books from Adam Grant, his originals is amazing. Think Again is a very good book that helps you to open your mind a little bit. And
Right. Thank you. We'll make sure to put it in the footnotes for the episode. And that brings us to our last round of rapid fire questions. Just fun, relax. So are you ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite food item from your portfolio? Personal preference.
I love our pistachio spreads.
Okay. What's your favorite Iranian dish?
Iranian dish. We have a very traditional dish. It's called abgusht. It's a sort of a stew with, it's the food that is the food for all the way from the farmers to the richest. So it's the food of everyone. I love it.
Excellent. Would you like the FoodYoung group to remain in the family when you have children?
I'm not in a big favor of passing the company and legacy within the family. I think the company has to be in the hand of the people that they are passionate and they love to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if my kids are not passionate about what we do, no, they have to. I think the role of every parent, that has been a bit of struggle for me, is to help their kids to find their passion and to do something that they're passionate about.
Yeah, that's completely correct. And what do you buy the most of at the supermarkets?
I would say vegetables.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the one product that you would really like to build or work on at FoodYoung that you haven't yet?
You know, that the funny thing is that anything that we think about and we start to work on it in the next month. So it was one of
That's
them.
great. You're very quick at manifesting and creating.
It's that's why I don't procrastinate. If we think about any product and we say straight away start, and sometimes I have a bit of resistance from the team. It's like, no, not again, not this one. Yeah, recent one is ice cream. So we are getting into ice cream category, and we do frozen meals. We do in FoodYoung. We do chocolates, bean to bar. We do spreads. We do baking items like biscuits or cookies or granolas. And to be honest, the next one is a good question. So maybe you can give me an idea. So that
that's tough for me to also think what could be.
Yeah, we do milk alternatives.
I mean, I think generally, proteins and this whole replacing meats is a big topic, right? And for me personally, I feel like there's a lot of products which are in the market, but I always question how processed is this really, in terms of, so my go-to is like, I'm just going to get tofu because I don't really know how processed this other stuff is. So
exactly. So that's the similar view that we have in the business when it comes to the protein alternatives.
Yeah.
We believe that protein alternative has to come, but doesn't have to be an imitation, because when you do imitation, it comes with lots of costs in processing, in ingredients, and colorants, and enhancing or anything that you add into it. But we work mainly on protein alternatives. But as you mentioned, like tofu, like tempeh, like you create something new, and it comes to the diet, and it has its own name, and then you consume that, and that's imitation is something that we try to avoid.
That's great. Yeah. Personally, I would prefer that. Maybe you could make because tofu is made from soybean, so maybe like a chickpea tofu or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Actually, we have multiple projects that we work with protein alternatives, but making something which is not in imitation. Is something completely new.
All right. I'll watch out for that.
Yeah.
Well, that was our episode. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was really nice to see your sort of clear visionary approach to things and very calm and structured way of going about it. So it was very inspiring for me. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me here, and really appreciated your time and also the questions you asked.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.